Imagine a time when crossing the ocean by air wasn't just a routine, it was an act of pure daring. The world of the 1930s was brimming with ambition, and the skies above the Atlantic remained the last great frontier. For Pan American Airways founder Juan Trippe, that vast stretch of water wasn't an obstacle, it was a destiny waiting to be claimed. But ambition alone wasn't enough. International policies, stubborn rivalries, and national pride all tangled the Atlantic like a net. Foreign powers like Britain and Portugal guarded their landing rights fiercely, forcing Trippe to turn westward, toward the Pacific, until the tides of diplomacy shifted. By the summer of 1937, the doors to the Atlantic finally began to creak open. Portugal agreed to host American planes at the Azores, and Britain, watching Pan Am's sweeping success across the Pacific, agreed to share the skies, but not without conditions. And so began one of the boldest chapters in aviation history. A joint venture, American and British flying boats, side by side, battling the Atlantic together. On Britain's side stood the short S-23 Caledonia, a mighty two-deck flying boat built by the Short brothers, boasting powerful Bristol Pegasus engines, innovative gouge flaps for heavy ocean takeoffs, and luxurious accommodations fit for an empire. Designed for colonial routes, the Caledonia could cover great distances, but she needed a little help. Special long-range fuel tanks for the brutal Atlantic hull. And from the American camp came the sleek Sikorsky S-42B Clipper, a masterpiece of speed and endurance. Lighter, faster, and with a greater standard range of 1,220 miles, the S-42B had already made its name flying over the Pacific, threading a network of islands like pearls on a string. When the two giants met in 1937 to survey the Atlantic routes, it wasn't just a technical mission, it was the dawning of a new era. An era when oceans no longer divided the world, but connected it. The story you're about to hear, first told in the October 1937 issue of Popular Aviation, captures this electrifying moment when bold pilots, gleaming flying boats, and the unstoppable dream of flight carve new pathways through the skies. So strap in, the Atlantic is calling. Wings Across the Seas, published by the editor in the October 1937 issue of Popular Aviation magazine. Long before the Pacific, Juan T.L. Trippe wanted the Atlantic, but Trippe's far-sighted plans for his Pan American Airways were successfully stymied by competing foreign nations, England, Portugal, etc. So, instead of devoting his major energies towards overcoming the Atlantic pitfalls, Trippe turned his company westward. With Pan American success in Pacific operations assured, Trippe again turned to the Atlantic. By this time, Portugal had agreed to give the Americans landing rights tentatively planned at the Azores and possibly Portugal itself. This was, and probably will be, the summer route of the transatlantic airliners of England and America. Britain, meanwhile, noting the success of the Americans in the Pacific and the willingness of the Yankees to cooperate on the Atlantic, gave in. Gave in, that is, to the extent that landing rights on British territory would be granted if, in turn, the Americans would grant the Englishmen the same privilege. Boiled down, it meant just what we are seeing today and what the photographs on this and the opposite page signify. The Americans must cut in the English or not fly the route at all. When the agreement cutting in, the British finally was closed, that country's air ministry immediately announced that orders for a large fleet of 4-engine flying boats had been given to Short brothers, famed old-time British airplane builder. The Caledonia, shown in the accompanying photographs, is one of the Short Empire boats, as they are technically known. But, though the British were entering a virgin field by comparison to Pan American, the Americans already had years of experience at long-distance over-water flying. Nonetheless, the Americans were forced to hold up their long-planned flights to Bermuda and England until the short boats could be completed. If it hadn't been for these delays, the Americans could have been flying the Atlantic 3 years ago. The service recently opened between Bermuda, British territory, and the United States also could have been in operation at least 3 years ago. But again, Pan American was forced to wait for the government-subsidized Imperial Airways to get its short boats. Consequently, the joint British-American service between Hamilton, Bermuda, and Port Washington, New York, was officially opened just last month. The Short and Sikorsky competitors on the Atlantic line compare almost equally, but the American ship has the edge on the short boat in its standard cruising range. where the Sikorsky has a range of 1,220 miles. The short boat has a standard range of 730 miles. However, special fuel tanks were installed in Caledonia for the Atlantic flights. Today, it's easy to forget just how bold those first steps across the Atlantic truly were. Behind every smooth flight we enjoy now, there were visionaries like Trippe, daring engineers at Short Brothers and Sikorsky, and crews who faced the unknown with little more than courage and a compass. The Caledonia and the Clipper weren't just machines. They were symbols of a world that refused to stay grounded. Their journeys remind us that every great leap forward begins with a bold idea and a willingness to chase it across an endless horizon. If you enjoyed this glimpse into aviation's pioneering spirit, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps others discover these incredible stories. And if you want to keep flying alongside me through the thrilling chapters of aviation history, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new adventure. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.